And we continue at 2:05 in the afternoon on the John Phillips Show. Mr. Randy Wings in Culver City.
John, right before Thanksgiving travel season, the TSA is out with a warning. If you don't have your real ID by now, they're going to probably charge you a fine, and you'll be subject to more intensive screening. What do you think that means?
Well, it means that you're going to have to point to the doll to show them where the bad man touched you. 800-222-5222 is the telephone number, 1-800-222-5222. It is our pleasure to welcome our next guest to the program. He is the author of the book American Leviathan, which is available online at Amazon.com. He's also with American Majority, which you can get at AmericanMajority.org. Ned Ryun. Ned, thanks so much for stopping by.
Yeah, great to be with you, John.
Well, thanks so much for being here. And I've got to say that I was at the David Horowitz Freedom Center event right after the election, and you gave what quite possibly might have been the best explanation as to just exactly why the election went the way it did, and you broke it down in each of the individual swing states and gave the reasons as to why those states swung to Donald Trump and against the Democratic Party. So I'm curious in that context to get your take on this, which is you look at what's going on right now in Congress, with the House of Representatives in particular debating the Jeffrey Epstein files. And it seems like the Democrats are totally convinced that this is the issue. This is the Achilles heel of Donald Trump. If only they spend enough time talking about the Jeffrey Epstein files, they'll finally be able to beat him and win an election and take the majority in the midterms. And I'm watching it and I'm thinking, these fools, these people have no idea what's going on out there in America. I do think the economy is a problem right now for Donald Trump and the Republicans, and people are uneasy about AI taking jobs out of the market, and they're uneasy about the price of food and the price of goods. And if the Democrats were to just bang the drum on that, then maybe they'd get somewhere. But this Jeffrey Epstein stuff is just delusional.
Yeah, it's not really going to be anything that will damage Donald Trump, but I will say this: the economy will. I mean, I'm sitting here in Virginia, and we just had our elections about 2 weeks ago, and I will tell you, because Winsome Sears, the Republican, did not want to talk really about the economy or affordability, it cost her significantly. And Abigail Spanberger won by 14.5 points. There were some other factors, but the one point I'll make to you, John, especially on the economy and affordability, is this. Among voters who said the economy was their number one issue, Abigail Spanberger beat Winsome Sears by 27 points. The entire electorate of Virginia, about half of them said the economy was their number one issue. So, they can talk about Epstein all they want in the House. The thing that concerns me is what Abigail Spanberger did, and I think a lot of it was lies, but at least the message, you can quibble over whether it was a lie or not, but the message was, I'm going to help you try and reduce the cost of living. I think the real issue next year is going to be, what's the cost of a pound of beef, of ground beef? What's the cost of a gallon of gas? Have interest rates gone down to make housing more affordable? Those are the issues that are going to decide the midterms. And so if the midterms were tomorrow, I think we'd get our teeth kicked in. But because they're next year, and because I see signs the economy's turning around, because I see signs that the Trump White House has really gotten the message, we need to talk about affordability, and then we need to make it a reality. Talk to me next summer. But there's a lot of positive signs, but we need to keep hammering on as Republicans and then make it something where it is a reality, not just a message.
Do you get the impression when you talk to people that they understand that? Because sometimes you have an election where it doesn't go your way and everyone takes the exact wrong interpretation and runs with it. I could totally see a scenario where Republicans lose because of the economy and all the Republican strategists go, you were too tough on immigration. If only you supported open borders, you would have won the last election.
Oh, I think there's absolutely a class of more establishment Republican consultants that will draw all the wrong conclusions, as they usually do. But I say this as someone who is deeply conservative across the board on social issues, on immigration, everything else. next year centers around affordability. Is the cost of living for the average American going to go down? Is it going to be a better scenario for them coming into September, October, into the November elections, into how much things cost in their day-to-day lives? And, I look at what's taking place right now with the GDP. The Atlanta Fed Reserve said, they're revising third quarter up to 4.2%. They're calling for another 4% in the fourth quarter. Scott Besson is very bullish on the next 2 quarters of 2026. So, I think there's things that are really starting to turn around. Inflation's holding steady at 2.7 to 2.9. Donald Trump has increased domestic production of oil by 1 million barrels a day. I've encouraged him, do all that you can to increase it by another 1 million or 2 million a day, because that's going to drive down the cost of gas, which will drive down the cost of transportation of groceries and products. All of these things will feed into making life more affordable for the average American. So people can talk about Epstein all they want. They can talk about a whole variety of issues. I will be very focused on the message of affordability while at the same time making sure we don't lose sight of voter reg, absentee ballot generation, A/B chase, early vote push, because it will come down to the fundamentals in these close House races. And I think the House will be decided by probably 15, 20, key races.
When you look at the cabinet that Donald Trump put together for the second term, the 2 most impressive members to my eye are Scott Besson at Treasury and Marco Rubio over at State. Now, international issues are not something that a lot of voters base their vote on, but certainly, as we've discussed, the economy is something that people care deeply about. Given the fact that his strongest horse is in that department and is working very diligently on the economy on a daily basis, that gives me a sense of hope. Do you feel the same way?
I do. I mean, I think Donald Trump's got a really good handle on what needs to be done. Obviously, Scott Besson, I kind of caught me by surprise, but I would agree that Scott Besson is one of the rock stars on this cabinet. I would remind people also that there's a little something going on the end of May, beginning of June next year, in which Donald Trump gets to appoint a new chairman of the Fed Reserve. And obviously that's a huge issue when it comes to rates being cut. I can safely assume, I think we all can, that Trump is going to appoint somebody that is in favor of cutting rates, which I think will feed into even better economy going into the midterms.
Joe Biden's top advisor, Tom Donilon, recently sat down for a Q&A with CNN's Alex Michelson here in Los Angeles, where he was talking about the last election, the 2024 election, and he said the massive mistake that the Democratic Party made was pressuring Joe Biden to drop out. He said that Joe Biden was the most electable Democrat that they had, and had they only stood behind him, they would have won the election.
So I can't help myself. That's the most absurd thing I've ever heard. We all watched the Great Conspiracy. We watched the Great Conspiracy of Silence about Joe Biden's dementia just explode on national television in front of tens of millions of people in June of 2024. And so, sure, you can go ahead and ride Grandpa Dementia and try and see if you can pull him across the finish line. But that conspiracy of silence was over. So I think we should all go back to that debate in June of 2024, in which it was untenable. It was they no longer had the ability to hide his dramatic decline mentally. And so it was a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation. You could either ride Joe Biden or you could take Kamala Harris. I have to tell you, John, based off everything, it didn't matter if Joe Biden was the nominee or Kamala Harris was the nominee. Donald Trump was going to win because of a whole host of issues, the economy, immigration, all of these things. Oh, also the fact that a lot of us, like myself, have been doing the right things in these battleground states to prep the battlefield. So they can talk all they want to about if he had been the nominee, we might have been able to win. That's a complete and total lie and fiction.
What was most interesting to me about that quote is it kind of gave us a window of insight as to what Joe Biden was being told privately as everything was falling apart. That's what his circle was saying to him. It's insane. I mean, I sit here and go, we all saw it with our own eyes. First of all, I'm in the DC area. There's a lot of things that you were seeing in the DC, area that you knew
they're hiding a lot. We already kind of knew this guy was in mental decline, and then that happened in June of 24. And it's just whatever lies they were telling themselves, we all know the reality. The reality was Joe Biden was a Trojan horse, an empty suit, whatever you want to call him, in which others were actually doing the business of his administration. Joe Biden was not making decisions because he lacked the ability to do so, because he lacked the mental acuity to do so. And so the fact of the matter was, I still think we need to get to the bottom of who was actually running the auto pen, who was making some of these decisions, because we all know it wasn't Joe Biden.
No, it had to be Hunter Biden's dealer.
It was Hunter Biden, Jill Biden, I think Valerie Jarrett. There's a whole host of people that I think were actually running that administration, and they were using Joe Biden, Uncle Joe from Scranton, the moderate, to really push their far left agenda. But he was just a figurehead, and they kind of knew this. I mean, you hear reports now that they kind of knew this in the 2020 election. The corporate propagandists helped run cover for them to get him over the finish line so they could beat Donald Trump, and then they kind of decided to call the shots inside the White House because Joe Biden was simply incapable. He was incapable of doing that.
The book is American Leviathan. The author is Ned Ryun. It's available online at Amazon.com. Ned, thanks so much for stopping by. Have a great Thanksgiving.
Thanks, John. Same to you.
All right. Did you see that clip that Alex posted on X?
Of Biden's advisor?
Yeah, Tom Donilon was the guy's name, who said that the big mistake that they made in the last election was pressuring Joe to get out of the race.
Well, I mean, it didn't work out, did it?
That's true. But if you go back and you listen to what Nancy Pelosi was saying and Barack Obama, they didn't want Kamala. They wanted an open primary at the convention where they could have found someone more electable.
And that's why Biden's revenge was immediately endorsing Kamala and saying, no daylight, kid.
You know, I told you at the time, I read all those books about the election, the one that Jake Tapper wrote, and then the other one, Fight, that was written by the two journalists that were covering the presidential campaign. And as I was watching that clip that Alex posted from this guy, Tom Donilon, and he's not a regular on cable news, so if you were to see the guy's face, you wouldn't recognize him. You wouldn't know who he was unless you were told. If I recall correctly, he was the advisor in the book that the campaign manager was furious at, Jen O'Malley, because this guy made like 10 times more money than she did. And this guy had a huge bonus had Biden won. For whatever reason, he got paid a lot more than the campaign manager, and the rest of them were super resentful. And the theory was that he got paid more than the rest of them because he was the guy that told Grampy Joe what he wanted to hear. And that was a value to Grampy Joe, because who wants to be told that they're wrong all the time? You want to be told that you're right. And the rest of them would occasionally go, you know, Joe, I don't know if we should do that. That doesn't seem like a good idea. But this guy was always pedal to the metal. Yeah, Joe, you're right. That's a great idea. Let's do that. And then he showed up with Alex, and the responses to Alex on Twitter among Democrats who were upset that they lost the election, and specifically upset at Joe for staying in as long as he did, and really mad at the people who told him to stay in. Boy, they unloaded on him. It'll be interesting to see what happens to the Biden people in the next campaign, because usually what happens when you run for president is you look for someone with experience. You don't want to bring someone in off the street to run a presidential campaign. Those are complex. You need someone who's been around the block a time or two. And you don't want someone who's ancient. You know, you're looking at a resume and someone said that they worked for Gary Hart. You go, okay, that was 1,000,000 years ago. What, did you work for McGovern too? You want someone who's worked a presidential campaign recently. And the last two cycles for the Democrats, it was Grampy Joe. So that's the population of people you have to choose from if you're running for president and you want to hire someone who has experience. I don't see any candidates hiring this guy.
Nope.
I certainly don't see Gavin Newsom hiring this guy. And he's hiring right now because his last chief of staff is trying to stay out of the clink. So I don't know. Maybe you hire the Obama people. But at this point, I mean, that's going far back too. He was elected in 2008 and 2012. There's been 3 cycles in between. 2016, 2020, 2024. And besides, I think all the people who work for Obama now have podcasts. What are you going to do? If you'd like to email the show, you can do so at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. That's johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. And Randy, with the end of the show quickly approaching, if you want to continue listening to us after we sign off at 3, that's easy to do.
We just did 15 hours this week. You want more? What's wrong with you? I mean, download the podcast if you feel like it. Search for The John Phillips Show wherever you get your podcasts, whether it's the Apple Podcast app, iHeart, Spotify. Search for The John Phillips Show. Hit subscribe. You can download all the episodes. You can do a Google on the YouTube. Get the free KABC app. Get the free KSFO app. Get the KMJ Now app. That is a station in the Central Valley that we're on Saturdays at 2. There are so many different ways to listen live to our radio stations and download all the podcasts. Listen to them during the holiday break, whether it's Thanksgiving or Black Friday. Maybe on Black Friday, you're going to be listening to our podcast while you're walking into a clothing store in Santa Monica as you see someone trying to steal a jacket.
Give me back my jacket!
Let's go to Matthew in Concord. Matthew, hello.
Concord.
Hi, guys. The spray painting, they interviewed all the adults, but then the door handle on the kid's car got smashed off and broken into. So it's the adults are like, why? Well, if they only spray painted the N-word and all that, what's the kid got involved? Because they never interviewed the kid, but I'm sure if they interviewed the kid would be like, yo, man, and this and that, and yo, and, you know, the adults are
is
like,
he a
why
pirate?
is this happening? And I'm sure if they showed a picture of him, he'd have his hat on crooked and, his pants hanging down around his waist.
I love the fact that this has turned into a game of Clue. Who did it? Who did the painting?
Yeah. So, the parents are just like, why is this happening? Why is this happening? And they didn't interview the kid, but the kid's car got damaged, and the rest of the other stuff is spray painting, marking their spot. So,
all right. Interesting theory. Thank you for the call, sir. Let's go to Jeff at Encino. Jeff, hello.
Hey, guys. Yeah. What I wanted to say is the guy in the video was dressed like it was hot. In fact, he was dressed like it was 98 degrees. And there's nothing like porch piracy that changes boys to men.
Good for you.
I appreciate that, sir. Thank you. 800-222-5222. And every time I hear that lyric, oysters and beer for dinner every night of the year, it makes me hungry.
It is a good Jimmy Buffett Friday.
How do you take your oysters? You like them raw? You like it Rockefeller? How do you take them?
I like them raw with a little lemon, a little hot sauce.
I like it raw with lemon and horseradish. I don't even fool around with cocktail sauce anymore.
That's a good one. I like when they give you that teeny tiny little bottle of Tabasco in the plate.
Good stuff. Let's go to Robert in Santa Clara. Robert, hello.
Hey guys, on the commenting on the guy who says, they might kick our teeth in as far as the midterms. I really have been thinking about all these hills the Republicans are going to die on, because you got to be popular in order to win elections. You have to have popular ideas that resonate with people. A lot of people got gung ho on this immigration thing, and being tough. Yeah, no one rushed the border. But, kicking some families out is not a popular thing. Not inventing a very good comprehensive work visa deal, an ideal that, where you're apologizing for the fact that you were tempted to come here by Biden. You got to send out some sort of, a little gentler policy. And you can't, the conservative luxury policies are going to kill us. 20-hour work weeks. I don't want a guy who's going to come to me for a job who doesn't want to even work 20 hours a week. I'd rather fund him. And it's like, these people are citizens who lost $400 at SSI. They need a reparations check because they had their money cut. California is not going to make up that difference. And they said they weren't going to change the entitlements, but they kind of did, and they expect the states to pick up for it. It's not a popular deal because it's not streamlined. It's not in place. I'd love to have a steel mill versus a bunch of windmills, and I don't even care if we cut $3 trillion like Musk says he can do. I'd rather be maybe more in debt and get maybe one of the victories, like a fracking deal going, and we ship out the energy and we get some pharmaceuticals made here, all these practical reshoring things, steel mills. But unless we get a happy medium going, we're going to die on these hills, including abortion. That whole federalist idea that states can do, we need a more of a uniform policy. Like, you got to go to the first trimester thing. And then we have to, how are we going to shepherd all these kids that we are going to refuse?
Here's why I disagree with you, sir. The abortion ruling happened before the last election and Trump won. They used that against him and it didn't work. He won. To my eye, immigration is not his problem. That was his strongest issue in the campaign. To my eye, his problem is the economy. People feel uneasy about the economy. They think that AI is going to take their job away. They think that things at the grocery store cost too much. They're worried about the future. They're worried about the future for their children, their ability to buy a house and live in their community. They're worried about the cost of higher education, all of those things. And if Trump could make people feel okay about that, if he could take those fears and say, all right, it's getting better. Look at what things cost at the grocery store now compared to where they used to be. Look at the number of jobs created now compared to where it used to be. Progress is happening. We're making things better, and people feel more confident. I think the Republicans will be fine in the midterms. If they don't make people feel more confident about the economy, then they are going to lose. And I think that those other issues, while they certainly are important to some people, I think to the broader electorate, to go back to what Jim Carville said in the 1990s, it's the economy, stupid. Thank you for the call, sir. All right, it's time to reopen the California Crime Blotter.
If the cashier is dummy.
I know.
We couldn't make this stuff up if we tried.
I said, hell no, baby boy. Let me get up on out of here.
It's the California Crime Blotter.
And Randy, this one involves a fake rent scam.
Okay, this is about as insane as it gets, and it's taking place and victimizing landlords in Los Angeles County, where somebody rents an apartment with a fake cashier's check, then immediately sublets that apartment to somebody else, and now, because of California laws, it's not a crime, it's an eviction process to get them out.
And that's a nightmare.
For more, here's Fox 11 in Los Angeles.
It's an expensive scam, and according to the LAPD, so far there are 2 landlords who have been hit by the same crew, and investigators believe there are more victims. Tonight, we spoke with one of them.
My mistake is that I handed them the keys thinking that the cashier's checks are like gold.
Nope.
Not even like bronze.
This poor guy.
Well, they weren't, and they aren't because they're fraudulent.
Bogus cashier's checks handed out by scammers. Landlord Michael Ranko said,
we're getting real close to the day where the only thing that's going to work is digital payment.
That you can verify, but you can't verify these checks anymore.
Bogus cashier's checks handed out by scammers. Landlord Michael Renko says he was targeted by professional con artists in a coordinated rental scheme. Take a good look at these faces. The LAPD is hoping someone will recognize the men they believe are preying on small mom-and-pop landlords across Los Angeles.
That's why I'm putting...
You mean the few that are left?
We keep pushing them out right and left.
That's why I'm putting it out to the general public to see if they can assist me in identifying who these suspects are so I can bring justice to the landlords.
Here's how the LAPD says the scheme works. The scammers apply for a rental, pay with a fake cashier's check, and move in. Then they quickly sublease the unit to someone else who may or may not be part of the operation. Michael believes the people living in 2 of his units are directly connected to the men who scammed him.
I said, we'll just wait for the police to get here. So she looked at me with disdain and laughed and said, police? Police aren't going to do anything. This is a civil matter now.
Here's California law at its best.
And you know there's got to be some spot on the internet that trains these people on how to do this because it sounds like they've done their homework.
And she's absolutely correct because the police said, this is a civil matter. There's nothing we can do. You have to go through the eviction process.
This is just like the illegal street vending in the Mission in San Francisco and MacArthur Park in Los Angeles. State law made that a civil matter, made that a public works and a public health matter, so the police couldn't get involved. Now they're trying to undo that. But yes, if you scam someone into a fake rental, well, because now they're living there, they're not subject to criminal law. They're subject to eviction law, which is really onerous on the landlord, even when they were the victim.
Well, go back to COVID. I used to split my time between my condo in LA and my house in the desert. And when COVID hit, we were all told to work from home. Well, I was. You weren't. You were going in to run the board, too.
You're really rubbing the salt into that wound, Johnny.
And my work from home setup was in the desert. And they told us it would be 2 weeks and we'd all be back to normal. Well, that turned into 2+ years. And I had a condo that I couldn't use. I couldn't rent it because there was an eviction moratorium in Los Angeles County. And I didn't want to leave it empty because if squatters showed up and said that it belonged to them, I would have to go through a judge. The cops would not kick them out because in LA County, they told the cops to back off. So a good friend of mine who's a judge said, listen, if you were to get in front of me right now, it's going to be 11 months at a minimum. Sell the condo. It's nothing but a liability to you right now. And for a lot of landowners, for a lot of homeowners in Los Angeles County, and even beyond that in the state of California, owning property in a state with the rules and the laws as they are is a liability.
And she's absolutely correct because the police said, this is a civil matter. There's nothing we can do. You have to go through the eviction process.
Even when this was an obvious con, you have no rights as a landlord.
Nope, it's California.
It's a process that can drag on for months. And in the meantime, it's costing Michael thousands of dollars.
Do you remember, and this is one of the more ridiculous examples, but it's true. Somebody rented an Airbnb in Redlands for a month. And then as soon as they were there for 30 days, they declared squatters' rights and said, okay, now this is our primary dwelling, and you're going to have to try to kick us out of here. And it took the owners about a year.
And it can take longer than that.
I'm angry. I mean, I'm really, really angry.
Calling him frustrated doesn't begin to capture it. He's outraged that he cannot remove the people living in his property who are not paying a dime in rent.
The city of Los Angeles really protects the criminals. They do not protect the landlords. They look at the landlords as, oh, we're the big bad wolf and we're taking advantage of all these poor people. It's like, listen, I just spent $7,500 and repainted the whole inside of the unit to look gorgeous. Don't tell me that I'm that kind of landlord.
This poor guy.
He's speaking the truth.
You may be wondering why Michael can't remove the people living in his units when they're not paying rent to him. But The truth is that in California, there is a law that once you establish residency, you cannot be removed, even if you went in there with false pretenses.
What's the purpose of that law?
It's to protect the criminal. They regard people with money, they regard people with property as bad people. And so because the framing paints the landlord as the villain, anything that the renter does is okay.
You have to go through a long eviction process. Marla?
So there you go. Watch out if you're a landlord. If someone's trying to pay you with a cashier's check, say hell no.
800-222-5222 is a telephone number. Let's go to Dave in Whittier. Dave, hello.
I can tell you for a fact, folks, that this law is to protect illegal aliens from being deported. It's pattern after pattern, time and time again. It's this huge pattern. That law, that woman who created that law, she got there on the assembly floor and said she's creating that law to let anybody come by and pick up anybody's kids without being a relative or whatever. She said it's to keep illegal aliens from being deported. And I can tell you the city of Anaheim on a local level, I watched as I worked in Anaheim, they allow these people down there near the 57 freeway and the 91 in that neighborhood down there to park, double park, all over in that neighborhood. I complained about it, and they never got back to me. And they let them park in the fire zone. That's what it is. It's corrupt. It's corrupt.
Yeah, that area is right next to Cal State Fullerton. I spent a lot of time over there, and it's pretty densely populated, pretty dense for Orange County standards, at least. And you're right. I mean, there are a lot of people parking on the streets there, and the government could clean it up if they wanted to. They can clean it up there. They can clean it up in L.A. They can clean it up in the Bay Area. They choose not to. They choose to allow those neighborhoods to look like that.
I got a little strategy. Get them on high crime, campaign against high crime, the high gas prices, high inflation, the crime wave, and these other things to the voters. And that way, you get them that way. Let me tell you, Lisa Calderon, my assemblywoman, doesn't want to answer any questions on her positions. And what it is, it's their technique. That's their Achilles heel. They don't want you to know the truth, so we tell the truth to get the uninformed informed, to get them out.
All right. Thank you for the call, sir. Randy, we have time for one more addition to the Crime Blotter.
It's happened yet again.
I know.
I see. Time for the California Crime Blotter.
And this one takes us to the swap meet.
A swap meet got robbed. For more, here's Fox 11.
Frightening moments in Panorama City when gunmen storm a swap meet and open.
Also, one of the stupidest names for a neighborhood in Los Angeles. Panorama City is not a city.
Neither is Studio City.
Nope.
Frightening moments in Panorama City when gunmen storm a swap meet and open fire in the middle of the day, robbing a jewelry store. Fox 11's Christina Gonzalez live now, and she spoke with the brave store owner who tried to fight off the suspects. Christina.
Hey! No!
I told them, no, go, no, get out of here.
Speaking is one of the women behind the counter during a midday armed robbery at a jewelry store inside Panorama City's Valley Indoor Swap Meet.
Okay, not to judge. What kind of jewelry are you getting at a Valley swap meet?
My guess is something that makes your wrist green.
You can hear shots fire as swap meet customers try to get out of the way.
They're stealing and the alarm is sounding.
That's the store owner who, along with her daughters who work with her, wants to remain anonymous.
You're going to keep playing that throughout the whole piece, aren't they?
That's how we found the ladies from Reseda. They kept replaying that over and over and over again.
Yes, they did.
I know.
Cell phone video shows her hitting one of the men.
She just, started hitting the guy to get out of there. And a lot of people, our family was like, you don't do that. They have guns. But at the same time, you have to understand that's her family behind the counter.
You don't think about the gun. You just want to do something.
The man run off. A man described as a security guard in his 50s is transported to a local hospital. The women are shaken. It is the second time in 2 years the store has been robbed, and they've been in business for close to 40 years.
Gee, I wonder what changed in the last 35 years.
It's really difficult, seeing the people coming and take your hard work of years.
And before these last two incidents, did you ever have problems like this?
No, even the same, some customers steal a little ring or a little bracelet, but nothing big.
Usually they just shoplift. They don't straight up stuff a gun in my face.
Yeah, this is a whole new world for these people.
But nothing big.
Nothing like this before. In 40 years.
In 40 years.
You shop here. You saw what happened. Does it worry you?
It really does worry me since I'm always with my daughter walking around these streets, especially. I do come here very often.
Are you afraid to?
You should find a different place to take your kid. That is not a good neighborhood.
No, but given the state of the state, I think that it doesn't matter what mall you go into. There could be a guy with a gun there to rob it.
Are you afraid to go shopping?
Sometimes.
We want to plaster their faces everywhere. We just want people to recognize them. We want them off the street.
And police telling us tonight they actually have one of those people they believe is one of the suspects in custody. They're questioning him right now, looking for the others. As for that security guard, we understand the injuries are minor. He was released from the hospital. If anyone recognizes these guys, please give police a call.
Watch out if you're going to the Panorama City indoor swap meet. Yikes.
How many wedding rings do you think have been purchased there?
How many thought there was a return policy?
All right, that's going to do it for us today. Have a great weekend, everyone. We'll see you on Monday.